I'm WFP National Director Maurice Mitchell, and today's call is something that's really close to me and very intimate and um, evokes a lot of emotions and some trauma, actually. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy ripped through Long Island and it destroyed my family home. My parents and I lost nearly all of our possessions, and we were forced to live in hotels for months on end. I felt a profound sense of loss, but also anger. And this was no act of God. The storm and its consequences were a result of hundreds of years of industrial and economic policy. They were the violent products of a political and increasingly existential crisis, climate change. Those feelings came rushing back to me vividly just last year as I watched record flooding in my family's homeland of Trinidad and Tobago. Massive rainfall forced towns to evacuate and homes were submerged or wrecked by massive mudslides. It was another reminder that people of color, poor and working class people are already bearing the brunt of climate catastrophe today, both in the US and around the world. By the middle of the century, 1 billion people could be forced to leave their homes because of climate change, whether due to sea level rise, drought, brutal heat, or political conflict stemming from them. This is a political crisis. Donald Trump has claimed that climate change is a Chinese plot. But long before Trump came along, the Republican Party had made climate change denialism a badge of honor. Americans would never change what they ate, what they consumed, or how they got around because of what a bunch of scientists had said, according to Republicans. It's hard to overstate how ghastly Trump's policies are. We now know a great deal about what a warming planet will look like. Trump's determination to burn every ounce of coal, oil, and gas this country can produce is a commitment truly to mass murder. And yet, that may not even be the darkest part of the right-wing climate politics. Bit by bit, we're seeing the line from the far right shift from outright denialism. Now they understand climate change is going to uproot tens, if not hundreds of millions of people, most of whom will be poor and most of whom will not be white. Where are they going to go but to wealthier and wider countries with more temperate climates? White nationalists see an opportunity. If they could convince Americans to fear the people coming here, they might support the kind of militarized, authoritarian government that white nationalists have always wanted. White nationalists look forward to fighting a kind of global race war, and climate change is making some of them think that they'll get their chance sooner rather than later. Now, all of this sounds very bleak, and it's easy to give into despair as we think about this type of calamity. But when I do feel that sense of despair, I remember the resilience of my parents when their whole world was literally washed away. I remember what I did when I was left with the clothes on my back. I remember the fortitude and ingenuity reflected in the videos and reports of people wading through water in Trinidad, processing loss, but rising to the occasion. And most of all, I remember this basic truth. The problems created by humans and institutions can be solved by them. So how do we combat a bleak future? For so long, debates about climate policy have been rooted in questioning people's individual choice. What kind of light bulb you have, whether you're recycling enough or buying the right car, or eating too much meat, for example. But lots of people feel like it takes everything they've got just to keep a roof over their families' heads and food on their plates. It didn't help that people preaching this gospel of climate austerity mostly seem pretty comfortable themselves. So we're not going to save the planet through individual decisions. We're only going to do it through collective solutions, including by confronting the political power of big coal, oil and gas, investor-owned electric utilities, the transportation sector, and corporate agriculture. It will take many trillions of dollars over the next 2 decades to transform our food, energy, manufacturing, and transportation systems, and ultimately our economy. And it will take lots and lots and lots of work that can offer good wages and good benefits, that can revitalize the communities that have faced the most disinvestment over the past decades. That includes the people who have been excluded from good work and helps communities threatened most by climate change. This is the promise of the Green New Deal, uniting hundreds of millions of Americans across considerable differences in a generational project of greening the earth for the good of the many, not the few. There is no way to win a Green New Deal without building a multiracial working class coalition. Winning means confronting and dismantling the corporate class that benefits from the current system and the white nationalists that dream of race war. This isn't just about greening our message. We need to defeat the governing majority that is aligned against us. They are using the solidarity of white supremacy to bolster their majority. We have to forge a new kind of solidarity that is multiracial in character to beat them. Thanks for listening. Now you're in for something special. You're about to hear from one of the leading organizers in the nation making a Green New Deal possible. I am so honored to introduce our first guest tonight, Varshini Prakash, Executive Director of the Sunrise Movement. Varshini, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to just get right into it and start with a question. So, Varshini, how did you participate in the recent climate strike? And can you share a story from that experience that stood out for you?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. It is wonderful to be spending my Sunday night with you all. Thank you so much for having me to the Working Families fam. And yes, again, my name is Varshini, and I'm one of the co-founders and executive director of Sunrise Movement. I am based in Boston, but I was able to spend my climate strike day on Friday, September 20th in New York City alongside, I think, 250,000 other young people. It was incredible that on that day, there were 7.6 million young people worldwide that striked. In over 6,000 strike events. I believe there were just over 500,000 in the United States alone, with 1,300 strike events just here in America. And we pulled off the biggest day of climate action in world history. So if you were a part of that, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for bringing your kids or participating yourselves. And it was incredible to see on Friday for a few hours, our generation truly took over the world. Our voices, our anger, our energy, our demands for serious action were everywhere. We flooded the streets on all 7 continents, and we were on the front page of basically every single major newspaper in the world. One of the stories that stood out for me in particularly was this one from Houston. And Houston, which has been experiencing the effects of a warming world for years now, was actually in the midst of a tropical storm Esmelda on the day of the climate strike. And in pouring rain, with the streets of some of the organizers of the climate strikes just drowned in water, we saw 1,200 people come out and participate in the climate strikes. It was organized by a coalition of young people in the city. And the stories you heard from people who were recovering from hurricanes in the past and were refusing and were taking action in the face of climate calamity in that moment were just astonishing. In Boston, which is my hometown, there were 10,000 people who came out for the climate strike, and it was organized primarily by a leadership team of people under 20. And of course, we saw incredible actions in a lot of the major cities, but to see the images coming out of South Bend, Indiana, and Des Moines, Iowa, was just so heartening to me to see how this is having influence across the nation. And when I think about how I describe the day, it was one of the most beautiful, invigorating moments of my life to see all of these young people, and at the same time, just like astonishingly heartbreaking. And there were like many times that I was holding back or tears or just crying in the middle of that, seeing these children who were 5, 6, 7 years, who were in grade school, knowing that in many ways the timeline of this crisis is so short that by the time they are even of voting age, their futures might be compromised, and we might have a full-blown emergency and crisis on our hands. So that's the way that I would describe it.
Wow. Thank you so much for describing that with such vivid emotions and language. I felt like I was there. I have a few more questions for you, if you don't mind, Varshini.
Yeah.
So if you could talk a little bit more about the climate strike. So what you described sounds amazing. The fact that it was, I noticed it, People all around the world noticed it. Like you said before, it was on the front cover of every newspaper. So what's next? Can you give some detail on where this movement is going in the next year or two?
Yeah, totally. So, you know, what we did on that Friday was incredible. And at the same time, I think many of us left feeling like even though there were 600,000 of us who joined the strikes in the US, there were not enough of us yet. As big as we were, it is only a fraction of what we actually need. So over the next few months and years, we need to be growing our power, not just this fall, not just for next spring, not even just for November 2020, but also for what's going to happen next. In 2021, no matter who wins the presidency, if we want to defend our very right to survive, because this is what this is about, we are going to need tens of millions of Americans to join us in the streets. So what does that mean for our strategy over the next few years? Step one, we are looking ahead to a massive strike on April 22nd, 2020. This is Earth Day. And it's special because it's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And it also happens to be my birthday. So we think Earth Day has recently gotten a little bit too tame. I know I grew up just like hearing about the corporate greenwashing it. But if you look back in history, the first Earth Day mobilized 20 million Americans in 1970. 20 million Americans. That level of heightened social mobilization led to the passing of massive environmental policy like the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act, the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency, things that we still use today and are critical to protecting Americans' clean air and clean water. So we think there's a huge opportunity to strike on Earth Day in 2020, but not just marches in the streets. We need sit-ins, we need holdouts at politicians' offices. We need strikes that last multiple days or even a week. So that's the next step. Step two, we know that winning a Green New Deal, as Maurice has mentioned, and as you all know, as part of Working Families Party, it's going to take political power as well. So after a massive Earth Day strike, we'll organize our generation to go all in for the most important generations of elections our generation has ever faced. And we'll team up intergenerationally as well. So by going all in for the 2020 election, we can defeat the forces of fascism and elect a government with a mandate to enact what we think of as the decade of the Green New Deal. And we'll need to get behind more people, those like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others, and make clear that if candidates want the youth vote, they need to show us that they are ready to stand up to the oil and gas lobby and make the Green New Deal a day one priority. And then we have step three. To win the Green New Deal after 2020, we are going to need to put incredible pressure on elected officials to make it a reality. Our best tool to do this is going to be mass non-cooperation through strikes and prolonged demonstrations. We don't know exactly what this will include. It could be a strike for one day or many. It could be sitting in public places or occupying offices. What we do know is this will have to be one of the largest youth demonstrations in American history. And structural changes, the kind that take money and power away from the richest in society and transfer it to the many, only can happen when a critical mass of the public is refusing to comply with the rules and rituals that define daily life and make our society function. So it's not just enough for us to turn tens of millions of people out in one city for an hour or two. We can't just repeat the strikes that happened a couple of weeks ago, but bigger, and assume we'll get the level of change and action we need. We need something like 10 million people across hundreds of cities across the country to walk out of work or school, to apply a level of pressure we haven't seen to make sure that even sympathetic politicians will ultimately buckle to the pressure applied from the other side by billionaires and CEOs. So we'll need greater scale. We need greater escalation, the ability to move key sectors of American society to shut down business as usual for a prolonged period of time. And we need some really clear core demands. It was really easy for politicians like Dianne Feinstein and others who haven't supported the Green New Deal, but were deeply in support of the strikes, largely because there haven't been specific demands that actually make politicians a little bit uncomfortable and force them to grapple with the reality of what this crisis is demanding of us. We need to double down in that way. And ultimately, this is about moving larger and strategic parts of society into a state of mass non-cooperation.
Wow. Thank you, Varshini. I know I'm in. And I'm sure everybody else on the line and those who can't make it that are part of the WFP family are totally in and committed to doing everything we could do for us, but also for the amazing young people around the globe and the young people that you work with every day. I think you're truly inspiring those of us that no longer have aged out of that category. But I've been sort of felt a renewed vigor because of the work that you do. So I have one last question, and we ask this to everybody that we bring on as a guest to the Working Families Party Assembly. Will you join us as a Working Families Party member today?
Yes. Woo! I can't believe I haven't done this yet, but yes, absolutely.
Right on. Well, thanks for joining as a member, for officially becoming a member of the Working Families Party, and I'll return the favor and figure out how I could, even as no longer a youth, become some sort of official member of the Sunrise Movement. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So next up, I'm going to introduce two of the most exciting WFP candidates in America this year. They're running as independent WFP candidates for city council in Philadelphia and kicked two Republicans off the city council. They're running on a bold agenda and they're gaining steam. I'm so thrilled to introduce Kendra Brooks and Nicholas O'Rourke. Kendra and Nicholas, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, Maurice. We're excited to be here with all of you. In Philadelphia, we have a chance to make history. We have a chance just to be a part of something we've never seen before here. My whole life, we have allowed Republicans to hold 2 seats in our city council. They've been reserved for a minority party. So anyone is non-Democrat, but that time is up. So I like Vashti. She just said, no more business as usual. That's what we've been talking about. No more business as usual here in Philadelphia. So right now we need folks that aren't just good on policy, but people with lived experiences that have been advocating for people in this city throughout their lifetime. I'm a mom, I'm a grandmom, I'm an organizer, I'm a small business owner. I travel around the country teaching restorative justice and restorative practices. And just last week, we had schools shut down for asbestos. And it's ridiculous, completely. One of the things we're fighting for here in Philadelphia is fully funded schools, which is a small ask. That's like a decency thing for common good. We need affordable housing, we need fair work weeks, and we need labor rights for all Philadelphians. And for me, those things are like monumental and why I decided to run. I've been asked before to run as a Democrat, and I said no. But when I was approached by the Working Families Party, I was so excited to do so because they share my values and they allowed me to run on a platform and I can be authentically who I am and be unapologetically myself. So I'm really excited about that. Also, being a Working Families Party candidate means that we're running a grassroots campaign here. We're taking no corporate PAC money. We're not taking any money from developers. And realizing that this is a people-powered movement and every contribution makes a difference to us. I think somewhere on the chat, I think a link for our Donate Now may come up, but the most important thing about our campaign, we're making history just by activating folks that have been disenfranchised by politics and getting them excited about something different that they've never seen before. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, we are extremely excited about what we're going to accomplish in November. As has already been stated, my name is Nicholas O'Rourke. Not only am I running as a Working Families Party candidate, I come from working families. That is the truth of who I am. My father was a truck driver, ultimately a janitor. My mother was a telephone operator and worked with the CWA and now drives buses for public transit. And as an organizer, but also a pastor who is committed to radical inclusivity in my congregation. I work with folks that are working families, that are poor folk, that are low-wage workers of all stripes. Here in Philadelphia, though, That's not that uncommon. We have a poverty rate of almost a quarter, 24.5. It was 26% last week, but now 24% of our population is living in abject poverty. And while we are seeing a lot of gentrification taking place throughout the city, a lot of displacement as a result of that gentrification, there are folks who are homeless. There are folks who are living in conditions that they might as well be homeless. They're struggling to feed their families. This has to change. We cannot sit idly by and allow this to continue to persist. Kendra and I are committed to making sure that we change that. So myself and Kendra have been doing this work as organizers for decades. Kendra likes to say there's about 30 years of organizing experience between the both of us. And so while we typically organize around issues, it is now time for us to organize ourselves into office. I'm out for waiting for folks to declare our values. It's time to be about what it is that we want to see happen. We often say in the streets, you know, whose streets? Our streets. In this case, we're saying whose seats? These are our seats. And so Kendra and I are looking forward to running Republicans out of those seats. And so running as a Working Families Party candidate, I've been able to stay true to my values and to run with integrity. I haven't had to contort myself to be something that I'm not. The very same issues that myself and Kendra have been running on and working on really on the front lines is the exact same platform that we're pushing out here. And the Working Families Party allows us that kind of lane and that kind of a platform to make that thing happen. So we're doing grassroots fundraising. We're being able to uplift these issues for the many, as we say, and not the few. So as Kendra stated before, we will repost the donation link in the chat. We would love for folks to chip in whatever ways they can. We're thankful for the Sunrise folk who we have stood with, who have actually endorsed us. We were out in the streets with them during the climate strike this past week. But we also want folks to join us as well. If you want to not just donate, but you want to put your feet to the pavement, put your hands to the plow and make some things shake, we would love for you to come down to Philadelphia as well and to work with us. And if you can't do that, you want to just join the texting program from afar, you can do that as well. There's many ways for you to invest in this campaign, and we would love all the help that we can get. So thank you for your time. We're excited about what we will accomplish in November. Power to the people.
All right, all power to the people. I love that. Whose seats? Our seats. That's great. I plan on using that on more of our municipal races, right? Because working families candidates are the most disciplined, committed, and authentic people you'll ever meet. And when we get working families candidates elected, that is people power. You know, they say all politics are local. And so just folks who are able to chat right now, I just want to see, is anybody interested in getting involved in Nick and Kendra's campaign? This is a national priority of the Working Families Party, and you see why. So folks on the line, yep, great. And so you could get involved by going to wfpforthemany.org/text. And for wherever you are, you could text into Philly, and you could text voters in Philly for Nicholas and Kendra. And if you want to make a trip to Philly and volunteer in Philly for GOTV or for any of the days before Election Day, you could do that as well. So also message in the chat box if you actually want to go to Philly and spend some time on the ground, which would be probably some of the most exciting, electrifying activities you could possibly do in order to be acquainted with your democracy, being on the ground in community, getting Nick and Kendra elected. So either way, either remotely or on the ground in Philly, just message and let's make that happen. Great. So every month we take the opportunity to highlight, and thank you again, Nick and Kendra. So every month we take the opportunity to highlight a new WFP member for somebody somewhere in the country. And I'm excited to introduce you to one of our youngest members, Saul Furholt Khan. Saul, welcome. Can you introduce yourself and tell us why you decided to join WFP?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Saul. I live in New York City, and I'm 14 years old. I joined the Working Families Party because I saw the work that they were doing in New York, in standing up to powerful interests, in taking on the IDC, and in taking on Governor Cuomo and his Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul. I got involved with the Working Families Party earlier this year, in February. Jumaane Williams was running in a special election for New York City Public Advocate, which is a position that's unique to New York, and it's second in line to the mayor. So I wanted to get involved in Jumaane's campaign, and his campaign staff directed me towards text banking with the WFP's text banking program for Jumaane. And I ended up sending out a few thousand texts and responding to around 500 people who wrote back to us. So for those of you who don't know, my favorite way of getting involved with the Working Families Party is to phone or text bank with WFP for the Many, because the people who run the teams are really supportive and kind, and they guide you along the way. So as Maurice mentioned before, you can get involved with the WFP for the Many's texting program, and you can text for Nick and Kendra by going to wfpforthemany.org/text. And within WFP for the Many, there are various opportunities for you to get involved in on all the teams, and you can really find a role that's a perfect fit for you. So after Jumani's campaign, Dylan and Sue, who run WFP for the Many, invited me to help write the text banking scripts for the WFP candidates in the New York City area ahead of the June primary. So I helped write the text banking script that we used to reach thousands of voters and persuade them to vote for Tiffany Caban for Queens District Attorney. And then over the summer, I was given an opportunity to ask Bernie Sanders a question during his WFP 2020 interview. And I chose to ask him about what he would do about climate change. And I feel like this opportunity that was given to me is one of the many ways that the Working Families Party amplifies the voices of its members and its young people. So I'm a member of the Working Families Party because I believe in what we are building in New York City and what we are building nationwide. And I believe in the candidates and the movements the party is supporting. And I believe in what the Working Families Party fights for: a progressive America where everyone can thrive, where communities are empowered, where we listen to everyone and help everyone get what they need. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Saul. And I could just tell you, as National Director of the Working Families Party, you're the reason why I'm here, to build a pipeline of excited, grounded young people and other folks who are leading now and challenging the status quo and building the type of multiracial working class alignment all across the country. So thank you so much for all that you do as a member of the Working Families Party. Saul really made that super clear. You know, the moral mandate all of us have to ensure a nation that is kind and that will give the ability for all of us to thrive, no matter where you're from, what you believe, what you look like, who you love, or how much money your parents have, right? That's what brings us to the work, all of us. That's what brings us to the Working Families Party. That's what brings us to independent politics, because we believe in that North Star. I'm so glad people like Saul and so many of you on this call are taking that mandate seriously. The only way we could build that nation together is through getting organized. At the WFP, we depend on each other. We depend on your smarts, your creativity, your time, your money. And that's why I'm going to remind you to sign up as a WFP member. If you believe in this movement, we need you to be an active part of it. If you've never officially joined and paid dues before, it's easy. You could just text the word member to 738-674. So just text the word member right now on your phone to 738-674. It'll take you directly to a page where you can sign up with your dues. Or if you're on your computer right now, you could just click the link that's posted in the chat box and you'll get your WFP membership card in about a week. So either click the link that should be in the chat box, or on your phone, text the word member to 738-674. If you're joining right now and you have access to the chat window, just please say so. And if you're already a member, but you want to bump up, shout that out too. I'm just going to give everybody a minute to sign up or to bump up. And I'm serious about this. This is how you build a grassroots movement. We weave together all of our capacities, our $5, $10, $20, $25 a month, in order to every day, little by little, build this movement, from our volunteer hours to our hard-earned money to our ingenuity, our ability to develop all types of new strategies on the ground. This is grassroots politics. So we're so grateful for everybody and everybody's contribution. It means so much, and this is how you build grassroots movement. And anybody who's on the call right now, if you're not a dues paying member, it's time to step up. This is go time. We need everybody in the fight. And I just want to shout out to you and thank you so much. Okay. Well, thank you all for your investment in our collective emancipation. Thank you for signing up. You'll be proud to be a part of this movement. We're moving to the breakout sessions in just a moment, but first I want to give you a quick update on how to get involved with the WFP for Warren campaign. Since we announced our endorsements, the endorsement. Thousands of you have signed up to host events, canvas, text, donate, and get involved in every way we can think of. Next week, WFP activists will be hosting WP for Warren debate watch parties during the next Democratic debate on October 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. A debate watch party is a great opportunity to invite Warren supporters you know well, but also to get to know others in your community for the first time. If you want to host one or join one, head to act.workingfamilies.org. That's ACT, A-C-T, like act.workingfamilies.org. So thank you ahead of time for being a part of this first group effort, and we expect many, many more goals and plans to come. Okay, now shifting gears, we're going to break into groups for a few moments to reflect on how we can together address climate change. The breakout takes a minute to set up, so hang tight. Building our beloved community, building trust across differences is the only way we'll ever be strong enough to defeat the billionaires and the white nationalists. That's why we always carve out time on the WFP assemblies for us to connect with one another. Tonight's breakout will last about 15 minutes. Also, just a reminder, as Marina said up top, this week we have one more section of the agenda after the breakouts. For anyone who has questions or concerns about the presidential endorsement, hang on after the breakouts and we'll have time to discuss that. I know some people have strong feelings about the presidential race, and if you do, we want to hear from you, but please be kind to each other. And please hold comments about our presidential process until that last section. I hope you could all agree not to take the breakout off course, but to focus the breakout on climate change. And then if there's other conversations that we want to have, we could do that after the breakout. So everybody ready? Okay, so the breakout will begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, looks like we're coming back. Okay, looks like we're coming back. I'll just wait a few more seconds for everybody to come back from your breakouts. So thanks everyone. I always really enjoy these breakout groups, but this week they were particularly powerful. I just want to lift up a few things that I heard. You know, I heard from Amalthea in our breakout group about just our need to come together and to marshal our forces like never before. It's like a World War II moment, I think is the way that she phrased it. And that really resonated with me. Nancy from New York, you know, also somebody who, you know, my hometown is Long Beach, and Nancy was actually calling from Long Beach. And she talked about the devastation of Sandy and how devastated our hometown was by Sandy. And, you know, the last thing we were talking about was the need to, you know, just rapidly focus on renewable energy and the fact that the urgency is now more than ever. And then Peter from Massachusetts was talking about the need for direct action and how important direct action is in making sure that that urgency is felt because we know that accommodationists and corporate forces are going to try to water down all of our efforts, and we have to be vigilant. So I was just really moved by just the wisdom in that breakout session. So tonight, that was our 6th WFP Assembly. I think every month they get better and better. And what we're doing is using the space to begin to build a community together. And I'm so grateful to you all for being part of it. In a moment, we're going to say our goodnight. And that's the end of the normally scheduled WFP Assembly. But after that, we're going to have one more discussion about the WFP 2020 endorsement for Elizabeth Warren for president. And if you want to be part of that, just stay on the line after everybody else drops off. So we close every month with something I'm borrowing from my siblings in the movement for Black Lives. In just a moment, we're going to unmute everyone's line. And so everyone can say goodnight together. It can feel powerful, hundreds of voices rising in symphony. So just get ready to say goodnight together. Again, we're gonna say goodnight. A lot of folks are gonna drop off, and then afterwards, we're gonna have our 2020 presidential conversation for those who wanna have it. So get ready to say goodnight together. We're going to unmute all the lines for just a moment, and then the call will be over for those of us that'll be dropping off. So we're unmuting in 3, 2, 1.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Together.
Don't forget to
Thank you for
vote.
being a part of this.
All
Bye.
right.
Good night.
All right. Take care.
Good night.
everybody here.
All right.
Whose seats? Our seats.
Our seats.
Yep.
Our
That's it.
Schools